In the burning sands of Arabia, long before Islam ruled herds and lands, a warrior was born, brave, intelligent, and unmatched in battle. His name was Khalid bin Waleed, a man whose journey would carry him from fighting against the Muhammad to become the undefeatable sword of Allah. But before he became the sword of Allah, his story began in Mecca among the noble Quraysh, where greatness was forged from birth. Khalid bin Walid was born into the noble Banu Makhzum clan of Quraysh, one of Mecca's most respected tribes. His father, Al-Walid bin Mughira, was a wealthy and powerful leader, and from childhood Khalid was trained for combat, swordsmanship, horse riding, and strategy. Even before Islam, Khalid stood out as a natural commander, fearless on the battlefield and respected among the Quraysh. When the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were forced to leave Mecca, tension between the Muslims and Quraysh grew. At Uhud, Khalid fought against the Muslims as a rivalry leader. The Quraysh army numbered around 3,000, while the Muslims were about 700. The Muslims initially gained victory, but a critical mistake changed everything. The Prophet ﷺ had stationed archers on the hill of Uhud with strict orders not to leave their position. When they left early to collect spoils, Khalid spotted the opening. With lightning speed, he led his army around the mountain and attacked from behind. This sudden maneuver caused confusion. Many Muslims were murdered and the Prophet himself was injured, though he fought on the wrong side. This battle showed Khalid's military genius, his ability to read the battlefield and act instantly. 2 years later, the Quraysh and several tribes marched on Medina with 10,000 soldiers determined to end Islam. But the Prophet ﷺ adopted a new defense, a trench around the city. Khalid, leading the Quraysh army, tried repeatedly to cross the trench and find a weak point, but the strategy was flawless. This was the first time the Quraysh were stopped not by strength but by intelligence and unity. Khalid began to see something deeper, a divine wisdom behind the Prophet's leadership. The defeat at the trench left a mark on him, and his heart began to question, how could a small community stand firm against all of Arabia? Khalid's army could not cross, and the two sides faced a long standoff. There was no direct combat, and thus no victory or defeat for Khalid. After the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Khalid watched as Islam continued to grow. He saw that those who opposed the Prophet ﷺ were failing, and that the Muslim victories were not by chance. In 628, he made a decision that would change his life forever. He left Mecca and traveled to Medina. There, in the presence of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he declared the Shahada, the testimony of faith. The Prophet ﷺ smiled and said, "Praise be to Allah who guided you. O Khalid, I always knew that a man like you could not stay away from the truth." From that moment on, Khalid's sword only belonged to Islam. Soon after accepting Islam, Khalid was called to his first mission, and it was one of the hardest in early Islamic history, the Battle of Mota. The Muslims sent 3,000 soldiers to face the Byzantine Empire after one of their governors killed a Muslim in war. When the Muslim army reached Mota, they discovered the enemy's strength, over 2 lakh Byzantine and Arab soldiers. The Prophet ﷺ had appointed Zayd bin Harisa as commander, followed by Jafar bin Abi Talib, and then Abdullah bin Rawaha. One by one they were murdered. As per Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, if all 3 commanders were murdered, the Prophet ﷺ instructed, let the Muslim then choose one from among themselves. When all 3 commanders fell, In that moment of chaos, the soldier turned to Khalid bin Waleed, newly converted but known for his unmatched brilliance in war. They chose him as the fourth commander, just as the Prophet ﷺ had foreseen. Khalid immediately took charge, displaying remarkable composure. He reorganized the army, shifted formation, and rotated banners to confuse the enemy, creating the illusion of fresh reinforcement. Then, under the cover of night, he executed a brilliant strategic withdrawal, saving the entire Muslim army. When the Prophet ﷺ received the news, he raised his blessed hand and said, "Khalid is a sword from among the swords of Allah, and Allah has drawn it against his enemies." From that day forward, he was honored with a name that would echo through history: Saifullah, the sword of Allah. From that moment, Khalid fought not for tribe or fame, but for faith, and his loyalty to Islam became unshakable. Soon after the conquest of Makkah, the tribe of Hawazin and Thaqif gathered their forces, fearing the rising power of Islam. Determined to strike first, they launched a surprise attack on the Muslims in the valley of Hunain, a narrow pass surrounded by steep hills and rocky terrain. As dawn broke, the Muslim army advanced through the valley, unaware of the hidden enemy awaiting above. Suddenly, a storm of arrows rained down. Panic spread through the ranks, and for a moment the battlefield echoed with confusion and fear. But in the chaos stood one man unshaken: Khalid bin Waleed. Though badly wounded, he refused to retreat. Mounting his horse, he called the soldiers back to formation and led a series of swift, calculated counterattacks. His leadership and courage turned what seemed like defeat into resilience, and resilience into victory. And by the will of Allah, the Muslims regained their strength, reorganized, and get victory. And from the valley of Hunain, history learned a timeless lesson. Victory does not come from numbers or pride, it comes only from Allah. Next came the long and exhausting expedition of Tabuk, a campaign to the far northern frontier of Arabia near the border of Byzantine Empire. Rumor had spread that the Byzantines were preparing to invade Muslim lands, so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ called upon the believers to march. It was the most testing journey in the history of early Islam. The blazing heat of the desert was merciless, food and water were scarce, and the distance was immense. Yet thousands of companions answered the Prophet's call. Among them was Khalid bin Waleed, now a seasoned general of Islam. He commanded portion of the army, ensuring discipline, morale, and unity in the face of hardship. Though no battle took place at Tabuk because the Byzantine never appeared, the expedition became a test of faith, endurance, and loyalty. For Khalid, this journey proved that his devotion was not only on the battlefield. He showed that true strength lies not just in fighting, but in patience, obedience, and steadfast faith under the Prophet's command. By this time, Khalid bin Waleed had proven himself not only as a brilliant general, but as a believer whose strength came from conviction. He had fought for falsehood and then for truth. But his greatest battle was still ahead against the mighty empires of Persia and Rome. In the next chapter, the sword of Allah will clash with the world's greatest enemies and reshape history forever. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ departed from this world, Arabia trembled once again. Many tribes who had accepted Islam now turned away. False prophets began to rise, and rebellion spread across the land. But Khalifa Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu, the first leader of the Muslim Ummah, stood firm in his resolve, and he called upon one man who could restore unity and faith: Khalid bin Waleed, Saifullah, the sword of Allah. Khalid's first challenge after the Prophet's passing was not against foreign empires, but against his own people. The Arabian had fallen into chaos, and these campaigns became known as the Rida Wars. One of the earliest revolts was led by a false prophet named Toleha in Najd. Khalid marched swiftly to confront him, leading his army with unmatched discipline and courage. In the heat of battle, Toleha's army broke apart and he fled the field in disgrace. Later, realizing his error, Toleha repented and returned to Islam, a testament to Khalid's strength and mercy. After Toleha, Khalid continued his journey across Central Arabia, facing smaller rebellions one after another. These tribes had refused to pay zakat and denied the authority of Khalifa. With each victory, Khalid not only crushed rebellion but re-established justice and unity under Islam. Through his campaigns, the Arabian, once divided, began to heal and come together again under one faith. Then came one of the bloodiest battles in early Islamic history, the Battle of Yamama. Here Khalid faced Musalma Kazzab, another false prophet who commanded tens of thousands of followers. The fighting was fierce and chaotic, and many companions of the Prophet ﷺ were martyred, including 70 who had memorized the Quran. The losses were heavy, but Khalid's courage never stopped. He personally led the decisive charge that struck Musalma down and ended his falsehood forever. With that victory, the unity of Islam was restored across Arabia. With peace returning to the land, Khalifa Abu Bakr looked beyond the desert to the great empires of Persia and Rome. The time had come to carry the message of Islam to the wider world, and once again he turned to Saifullah, Khalid bin Waleed. Khalid's first campaign beyond Arabia was against the Persian Empire in Iraq. The first great clash came at the Battle of Chains, named so because the Persian soldiers had tied themselves together with iron chains, vowing not to flee. But Khalid's brilliant strategy and relentless assault shattered them completely, and he personally killed their general, Hormuz. This victory sent a shockwave through the region. For the first time, the Muslims had defeated a world superpower. The next confrontation came near the Euphrates River at Al-Madar, known as the Battle of the River. Khalid launched a surprise attack at dawn, crossing the river with speed and precision. The Persians were overwhelmed, and once again victory belonged to Muslims. Soon after, at Walaja, Khalid executed one of the most famous military maneuvers in history, the double envelopment. He encircled the Persian army from both sides, crushing them entirely. Modern historians still call it one of the most perfect tactical moves ever recorded. Khalid's campaign continued at Ulais, where he vowed before Allah that he would fight until victory, and he did. The Persian resistance collapsed completely. Soon after, he laid siege to Hira, one of the Persian capitals, but the city surrendered peacefully, and Khalid accepted it with honor, ensuring protection for its people. He showed the justice and compassion of Islam even in victory. By the end of these campaigns, nearly all of Iraq had come under Muslim control, a stunning achievement in a short time. But Khalid's journey was far from over. Soon new commands came from Khalifa Abu Bakr to head west towards Syria, where the powerful Byzantine Empire was preparing huge armies to stop the growing strength of Islam. The path from Iraq to Syria was extremely dangerous. A vast desert with no visible water or shelter, yet Khalid bin Waleed, with his unshakable faith and brilliant leadership, guided his men through the burning desert. It became known in history as the Miracle March, a journey so harsh that no army before had ever dared to attempt it. But Khalid made the impossible possible. When Khalid finally reached Syria, he found Muslim forces scattered in different places. With his leadership, he brought them all together and prepared for one of the biggest battles of his life, the Battle of Aghnadine. The Byzantine army was strong, well trained, and heavily armed, but Khalid's smart planning and the unity of his soldiers turned to the tide. The Muslims won a clear and powerful victory, and this success opened the doors of Syria for the message of Islam to spread. From there, Khalid marched toward Damascus, the most beautiful and important city in the region. He surrounded the city and laid siege to it for several weeks until it finally surrendered. But when Khalid entered Damascus, he did not come as a cruel conqueror seeking wealth or power. He came as a humble servant of Allah. He promised safety to the people and protected their homes, families, and place of worship. Though his actions, Khalid showed that the mission of Islam was not about taking land or treasure, but about spreading justice, mercy, and peace. After the victory in Damascus came one of the greatest and most important battles in history, the Battle of Yarmouk. In this battle, almost 2 lakh Byzantine soldiers faced only about 30,000 Muslim fighters, led by Khalid bin Walid. For 6 long days, the fighting was fierce and non-stop. The Byzantine army struck again and again, but Khalid's smart strategies, quick movement, and ability to keep his men spirits high turned what seemed impossible into a great victory. The power of Byzantine Empire in Syria was broken forever. Yarmouk became a historic turning point, a battle that changed the future of the entire region and the course of world history. Soon after, Khalid played an important part in the peaceful capture of Jerusalem. The Byzantine leader known as the Patriarch agreed to surrender the city only to Khalifa himself. So Khalifa Umar bin Khattab traveled from Medina to personally accept the city's surrender. Khalid was there during this great and historic moment. The holy city of the prophets came under the protection of Islam, not through war or bloodshed, but through peace, respect, and honor. After all these great victories, Khalifa Umar bin Khattab made a surprising decision. He replaced Khalid bin Walid with Abu Ubaidah as the new commander of the Muslim army. Many people were shocked because Khalid had never lost a single battle and was loved by his soldiers. But Khalifa Umar's decision was not due to any mistake or failure. He deeply respected Khalid but wanted to send a powerful message to the Muslim world that victory and success come only from Allah, not from the strength of one man, no matter how great he is. Khalid, being a true believer, accepted his order with complete obedience and humility. There was no pride, no anger, and no complaint in his heart. Instead of walking away, he continued to serve Islam as a simple soldier, fighting under the command of Abu Ubaidah, the same man who had once served under him. This act showed Khalid's true greatness, that his loyalty was not to power or position, but to Allah and his cause. Even without a title, he remained the same fearless warrior, devoted servant, and humble believer that history would forever remember as the sword of Allah, Saifullah. Years later, after many victories, Khalid bin Walid was removed from the army by Khalifa Umar bin Khattab. This time it happened because Khalifa simply wanted to show that no one is above the rules of Allah. Khalid accepted this decision with humility and patience, and he did not argue or complain. In his final years, Khalid bin Walid looked back on a life filled with battles, victories, and service to Islam. He once said with deep emotion, "I have fought in 100 battles seeking martyrdom, yet here I die on my bed like a camel. May the eyes of coward never sleep." These words showed his courage and his wish to die as a martyr on the battlefield. But it was Allah's will that the sword of Allah should not be broken in war. Khalid passed away in Homs, Syria, never defeated in any battle he fought. He was a warrior who had once fought against Islam but later became its greatest defender. Before Islam, he fought for pride and glory, but after accepting the faith, he fought only for Allah and His message. He defeated the strongest empire of his time, the Persian and the Byzantines, yet remained humble and obedient to Allah. The world remember him not just a general but as Saifullah, the sword of Allah, a title that will forever shine in the pages of history. And that was the story of all the great battles of Khalid bin Waleed, the undefeated warrior, the sword of Allah. His courage, faith and leadership changed the course of history. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel.